Okay, I'm Brad, and this is Stephanie. So happens to be my daughter, and we're gonna talk about our precious brother, son, who's gay, and how we've dealt with it. Specifically, how Stephanie has. And I've never questioned her that much about how she's dealt with it and what the response has been with David, and so hopefully this will help some of you who have a family member or are initially dealing with this situation. David came out when he was 16, right?
I don't know exactly how old he was. I remember I was a freshman, and I think he told you after. Well, I know he told you after he told me. So I remember where he told me. Actually, it was in the garage of our house, and I had we had mutual friends, and they had said some things that were kind of alluding to it, maybe prepping me for the news or whatever. So I just asked him straight out, and he told me, yeah, he was gay. And I remember at that point, like, it's kind of funny because back then I didn't really think that much of it, actually, at the time. What I thought most of was, how are my parents going to deal with this? Because I didn't view him any differently. It was just like, yeah, okay, you are. That makes sense to me. So I think that my main concern was, how you guys were going to deal with it.
And why did it make sense to you?
I don't know. It just seemed like, David had girlfriends before, but I was younger. I'm 2 years younger than him, so I didn't really think much of it. And at the time, like, it just didn't really faze me. The ramifications, I've come to see them more as I've grown up, and seeing all that he kind of has to give up is really sad. And I just feel like it would be a lot easier for him, if he weren't gay. Obviously, it would be easier, but I didn't think about it at the time.
Now, did you suspect or did you see him as being somewhat feminine growing up, or?
I don't think that
was it ever
femininity
a
has anything to do with it,
concern?
personally.
Okay.
Culturally, we think it does. But, like, in the Middle East, men hold hands walking down the street. So, like, I think that is kind of a misapprehension of our society, because I've had a lot of friends that seem more feminine that aren't gay. So I think that if you put something on someone just because they're feminine, that is also making them someone they're not. Like, oh, you're feminine, so you must be gay. And our idea of that type of femininity is not necessarily correct just because it's cultural. So no, I did not see him as, oh, he should be a girl or anything like that. Like, the femininity, I don't think he was feminine, in my opinion. He wasn't like, oh, David's weird. I never thought that.
Mm-hmm.
It was more that there were some, like, kind of comments by friends and looks, like he would look at him, and they'd be like, oh, dang it, Stephanie doesn't know,
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what tipped me off. So, like, I personally never really thought of it. I guess I didn't, because he's my brother, I didn't think of him as in a romantic relationship with any type of person.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Okay, and what were you fearful of on how your mom and I would respond, and what, and that idea that you may have had, how that might affect the family?
Well, okay, if you want me to be honest, I thought Mom would be more concerned, because she'd say, like, okay, you're going to have a hard life, this is going to be sad for you. But I thought you would be more judgmental,
Mm-hmm.
that you would judge him for that because, it's against biblical principles. And I felt bad for him. I didn't want him to experience that estrangement, maybe, or, sense of that he doesn't belong or something. So that's kind of what I was fearful of, and I think that you guys hadn't meshed because he wasn't the type of like son that you were expecting, and part of that I think maybe was that he is gay, and so that was a level that you didn't understand, that you didn't know about at the time, but that was kind of there. And so I was concerned about how you would respond when you found out that that's what it was that you didn't really understand about David.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. And your relationship with him, how did it affect that before you knew and after? What happened to you two? Were you closer? Were you the same? What happened?
I'd say we were the same.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I felt a little closer because I knew more. I knew that part, of him,
Mm-hmm.
that he'd been keeping from us, and understandably so. It's hard to tell your family, but
Mm-hmm.
I didn't feel any, I didn't feel any change in how I looked at him.
Mm-hmm.
There have been times where it's been difficult, like through life changes and just recognizing, okay, I'm not going to have a sister-in-law. I'm not going, and this is more David. He doesn't want kids, it seems. So he could probably have kids, but like I'm not going to have nieces and nephews from him and stuff. So that was more of the wow, our lives are going to be going down very different paths, and that was later on when I was more mature and going into what life had for me and what God had for me in the future, and saying that it was going to be totally different for David. At the time, there was no change. Like, didn't faze me really at all.
And you've been a Christian most of your life, correct? And so,
Yeah.
How did you, with your faith, how did that affect you with your faith? Because some people, like you were afraid I would be real judgmental, because maybe some comments that I had made in the past about gay people and my attitudes and maybe my fears. But how did you, with your faith, be able to reconcile things and come to the place where you are and still have a great relationship with David?
Well, at the time that I found out, I was pretty wayward in my faith. And so I just was less concerned about morality in general. And that was my freshman year and sophomore year of high school. And then as I reclaimed my faith, or depending on, I'm not sure if I was a Christian beforehand, but I believe I was. But when I really started pursuing God, it did become more difficult as you read these things in the Bible, and it's just hard to reconcile with someone that you love. It's hard to reconcile what it says. But I guess what I came to was, David is my brother, and this is not a defining characteristic of who he is. I don't go around saying I'm heterosexual like that. Yeah, that is a part of who I am. But David, who he is just this amazingly loving person who is so accepting of other people and who doesn't concern himself with judging other people and what they do for a living or how they look or things like that. And he's amazing with handicapped people, and just shows so much of his heart and how tender he is. And it's possible that if he weren't gay, he wouldn't be like that. I don't know. But I view him more as, David is my brother, and he has these he's an amazing person. He's an amazing person. He's amazing characteristics that God has given him, and that has been cultivated through him as a part of these trials that he's gone through. And he wouldn't be that person maybe without them. And it's not my position to tell him to be something else. It's my position to love him, and I do. I don't think of him as that. Well, David is gay. That is, he is, but I don't think of him as that. I think of him as my brother, whom I love.
And how do you think he responded? And How did you give him support and encouragement? Did you guys talk much about it, or was it just something that you just went about life then after that and not
I
really
kind of-
address the issue? Or
I don't remember that much at the time. I remember I remember the conversation in the car, and I remember saying, like, you need to tell mom and dad about this.
Mhm.
And I think we talked a little about it, but it wasn't. I wasn't like counseling him through it or anything like that. There was still not a disconnect, but maybe a little bit of a barrier because I'm his younger sister, you know. So I don't know if I really was able to give him that much support.
How fearful was he telling your mom and I about it?
I think he was a lot less fearful to tell mom,
Mhm.
and he didn't tell me how scared he was to tell you, but I think he was really scared.
Mhm. Right. What is there any advice that you would say to siblings of a gay person that you think could be helpful for them if they're going through this issue? And what would you say
For Christian siblings?
for Christians? Yes.
I'd say that you shouldn't focus so much on that one thing, because God isn't asking for one part of us, he's asking for all of us. So it's about holiness. So you shouldn't judge a person for the individual acts that they commit, and don't lay judgment on someone that you can't understand what they're going through and what it's like. Just love them and, you know, refrain from saying anything that's going to be hurtful to them, or saying, you know, something that you don't know anything about, like, well, you should just change, or you can just choose something else, you know, like, those things are, I think, very hurtful to someone who can't change who they are and who doesn't understand why they're in this position. And what we're called to do is to love them, and yeah.
Mhm. Very good. And maybe would you say the same thing about parents too, on how they can respond?
Well, I would give the same advice. I know it's more difficult as parents because you want to feel like you're not condoning something, and you feel like you still have to raise your kids even if they're grown or, you know, out of your house. And there's that, like, tension of you need to be the respected parent and they're the child, you know, and it's not the same type of relationship as a sibling.
Mhm.
And I see that would be a lot more difficult, but I think that means for you have a lot of impact as a parent while you're raising and after, because inevitably people are living for, you know, recognition and acceptance. And if they're not getting that from God, they're trying to get that from their parents.
Mhm.
And when they don't get that from their parents, then they turn to other things.
Mhm.
So I think parents really need to show that they accept their children. They don't see them as lesser just because they're gay.
Mhm.
And they truly love them, and they maybe even show their love more, or do things that show that they love those children more even than not more than the other children, but I think that there needs to be more outward love to verify, yes, I love you, yes, I accept you,
Mhm.
because they're already coming into the relationship thinking they're not going to accept me, they're not going to love me the same. So there has to be a step beyond what you might give to your other children.
Mhm. Yes, very good. Well, I think that's about all I have, unless you have something else to share.
No, I mean, I think recognizing the other qualities of whoever it is in your family and not just dwelling on the one thing. We tend to do that if we don't struggle with the same things. We tend to point out, you know, things in other people's lives that we don't have a problem with.
Mhm.
And
Right.
I think that you shouldn't dwell on those things.
Mhm.
Get to
Yes.
know them for the person they really are, and
Mhm.
and not just be like, oh well, they're gay and they're a little weird. Like, no, that's not true. I think a lot of Christians don't get to know gay people and find like the, you know, the gems of their personality that they have
Mhm.
sometimes because they're gay, and those great
Yeah.
things that we don't get experience in other types of relationships with other people.
So, and I've seen you come alongside David and help and be encouraging, and you guys have such a great relationship. So I think you can really speak to this, and you know, it's love covers a multitude of sins, and that's the main thing, is to show our love and not act like we know we have all the answers. We don't have to.
Yeah.
Just support them in their choices, right?
Right,
And
and
what
I
they
don't
choose
have
to
all the
do.
answers, and I don't think that David knows how much I love him.
Mhm.
We're not good at keeping in contact very much, neither of us, but I think that maybe I could do a better job of showing that.
Very good. Love you, darling.
Don't you, Dad?
Thank you.